shared aspirations and ambitions of two nations.
This is day 2 of the News9 Global Summit presented by AM Green and Green co-hosted by VfB Stuttgart, supported by the state of Baden-Württemberg, co-powered by Kalyani Ferrista and Tech Mahindra. It's an initiative by the TV9 network.
Very good morning, everyone. We are kicking off the day bright and early as we have a lot lined up for you today. It's going to be a power-packed day with addresses by policymakers, insightful conversations with leaders, breakaway meetings featuring business honchos from Germany and India.
Yes, in fact, there are going to be over a dozen dedicated rooms to host these meetings. There will be sessions in the main hall, including delegations from various state governments of India.
And through the day, we will be exploring all avenues for cooperation between India and Germany across all high-interest areas, from electronics to green energy, from defense to sports, to entertainment and tourism, and much, much more.
Yes, the big moment of the day and the summit as a whole will, of course, be the summit's keynote address delivered by none other than the Prime Minister of India himself, Shri Narendra Modi.
The day will end with a grand evening at the Porsche Lounge that will play host to our awards night, beginning with Auto Honors, where we felicitate automotive trailblazers that have set new benchmarks in the industry.
And then there are the Global Icon Awards, where we host super achievers from all walks of life. So a lot to look forward to.
There will also be a cultural extravaganza in the form of a one-on-one or one-of-a-kind solo concert.
So, as we said, there's a lot lined up for all of you. Without wasting any time, let's begin day 2 of the News9 Global Summit with the welcome address by the man who envisioned this summit, the MD and CEO of TV9 Network, Mr. Varun Das.
Thank you, Meha. Thank you, Padmaja. Namaste, Germany. Guten Morgen. To all of you who have braved this cold winter in Stuttgart and made it to day 2 of News9 Global Summit. We are honored to have Mr. Cem Özdemir, Federal Minister for Food and Agriculture, and also recently Education and Research. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us this morning. For those who were not with us yesterday, we heard from Minister Ashwini Vaishnav and Jyotiraditya Scindia ji on how India and Germany are on course to further the bilateral cooperation between the two great nations. Let me quote Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia when he spoke from this very dais. He said, Indo-German partnership is a living bridge that unites the world's two most dynamic countries, a bridge that is not built on steel or stone, but beliefs, ideas, and values. I couldn't agree more. Minister Ashwini Vaishnav went on to reiterate that India offers trust, talent, and stability, which is all the more relevant for exchange of skills between India and Germany. Today, we will delve deeper into the skills program that India and Germany are working together on. Today's sessions also offer a glimpse on how India is reinventing itself across all themes and how Germany is an obvious partner in this journey towards sustainable growth. Just last month, I was at a lunch that was hosted by the Prime Minister of India in the honor of Chancellor Olaf Scholz in Delhi. The Hyderabad House in New Delhi was abuzz with camaraderie, optimism, and ambition. I'm quite certain that the ongoing deliberations at News9 Global Summit will further the cause of India and Germany walking together on the road where the winner would only be the planet. Talking about the planet, well, that is where we kick off today's proceedings. Climate change is a reality that has hit all of us, from floods in India's Chennai to Spain's Valencia. The impact of climate change is no more restricted to scholarly literature. It is upon us. COP29 ended yesterday, and the NATE collective quantum goals seem to remain just another pipe dream. The big question of who will finance the climate change and by how much continues to be a contentious debate. In fact, some of our speakers at the conference today are arriving from Baku after attending the COP29. We'll hear from them firsthand later today. The biggest calamity of climate change is food production, and inflation in food prices hits everyone equally, no matter how rich or poor. So starting the proceedings today would be none other than Cem Özdemir, Federal Minister of Food and Agriculture, Germany, who's recently been added, having given an added responsibility of education and research. Welcome to the summit, sir, once again. We will then move on to another theme that is dominating the global headlines, and that is artificial intelligence. In his address during India visit, Chancellor Olaf Scholz, and during Chancellor Olaf Scholz's India visit, Prime Minister Modi said that AI has two definitions: artificial intelligence and aspiring India. And while India will endeavor to take the lead on technology, the nation is transforming as a manufacturing powerhouse. As global companies began diversifying their supply chains in adopting the China Plus One strategy, India becomes an obvious choice. So on the News9 Global Summit, we'll talk about an India that is poised to be the next factory of the world. And then, of course, we will hear from our keynote speaker at this News9 Global Summit, the Honorable Prime Minister of India, Sri Narendra Modi himself. He will take us right inside the global bright spot called India. But just when you think it is over, we will dazzle you with a memorable evening that felicitates global icons as well as auto leaders. And finally, we will leave you with a solo concert like what you have never seen before. On behalf of News9 and esteemed partners, I thank you for joining this summit today. May this summit ignite meaningful conversations, foster impactful partnerships, and pave the way for a brighter, greener, and more resilient future together. Welcome once again to the News9 Global Summit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Das, for setting the stage for the day's event. The theme of this summit, as we've been telling you all, it's India and Germany, a roadmap for sustainable growth across sectors, starting with what keeps us all alive, food. To deliver the opening address of the day, Agenda for Sustainable Growth, it's our pleasure to invite on stage Germany's Federal Minister of Food and Agriculture, Cem Özdemir.
A world at the crossroads of change, where growth must meet responsibility. The future demands sustainable solutions. Cem Özdemir leads the charge in sustainable agriculture. A voice for ethical growth, a vision for the future. Join him as he maps the agenda for sustainable progress. Ministerial address.
Thanks for the kind introduction. Ministers, Excellencies, Namaste. Dear Mr. Das, dear Mr. Kasper, and thank you for organizing today's summit in Stuttgart. And a warm welcome to all business leaders from India and from Germany. Dear members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, dear guests. As far as sports is concerned, I have to admit, Germany and India are maybe not the closest allies with their favorite sports. When I look to cricket, I still have difficulties to understand all the rules. And I guess it's likewise, and you look to soccer, 11 players play against 11 players, and at the end it can end with 0-0. So what's the point about that, you might ask? But if you look more closely, you will find out that my favorite soccer team, VfB Stuttgart, has a hockey department since 100 years. So we have much more in common than it looks on the surface. On a more serious note, our world seems to be in turmoil. The number of armed conflicts is unfortunately rising. So are the global temperatures and sea levels. We experience, as we've heard before, extreme rain in Spain, while on the other side, extreme heat with devastating consequences in New Delhi in May and June. There is no country that is not, in one way or another, experiencing the drastic effects of the climate crisis. Greenhouse gas emissions are more than 50% higher than in 1990. The annual average economic losses from climate-related disasters are in the hundreds of billions of dollars. Faced with these global challenges, the international community agreed together to build a path towards the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. But let's be honest with each other. The progress reports tell us that we're not yet where we need to be. And it's even worse than that. We must rush up to accelerate our efforts to transform our economies and societies to make them more sustainable. None of us is able to face that on our own, independent from how strong our economies are. We need partnership. And therefore, I'm very grateful that the Sustainable Development Agenda is central to a strong and growing cooperation between Germany and India. Since 2011, Germany and India have held government consultations. And as far as I know, Germany is the only country India engages with in this way. And we appreciate the trust that comes along with that. Last month, representatives of our governments met and outlined the roadmap for future cooperation in sustainable growth in different areas. First, the agricultural sector, an area that is crucial in addressing three major global challenges: food security, climate change, and social security. I therefore welcome that India and the European Union have resumed negotiations on a free trade agreement. It's high time that we move ahead. I'm convinced that an increase in agriculture trade means welfare for both of our countries, for both sides. Second, artificial intelligence. It can help us pursue our common sustainable development goals in agriculture. For instance, it can enhance productivity and climate resilience. We all admire India as the global leader in digital technologies. And if I talk about my own country, we're famous, in particular in my home state, Baden-Württemberg, for the famous German Mittelstand. So if we pool our knowledge and innovative approaches together in these areas, we can achieve a lot. And on the other hand, artificial intelligence needs to be safe. It needs to be human-centered. The European AI Act could therefore be a building block on this way to mutual success. Third, renewable energy. It is another area where India is a rising power and a global leader, aiming to become the world's second largest producer of solar panels. The potential for investment is immense, and German companies are eager to be part of that, in particular the state of Baden-Württemberg. I don't know whether you knew that Baden-Württemberg is the first state in Germany that made solar panels compulsory on new buildings. This afternoon, I visit a farm south of here that is one of the leading companies in agri-photovoltaic. This is an ideal combination, a dual-use area where agriculture and solar power generate great potential. After all, the principle behind this is very simple and compelling. Arable land remains arable land, and the photovoltaic system stands over it, ensuring our basic needs are covered for our common future. The result is win-win for the climate, for the environment, and for our farmers. And finally, the whole area of green hydrogen. Our joint roadmap aims at supporting India in the production, use and export of green hydrogen, while at the same time contributing to a swifter adoption of green hydrogen as a sustainable source of energy for both countries. As newly appointed Minister for Education and Research, I have to underline, research and education play a key role in the transition to a green economy. We therefore encourage the growing exchange between our two countries in this field and notice a growing number of Indian students studying in Germany, which we highly appreciate. The German-Indian Migration and Mobility Partnership Agreement is a milestone in the close German-Indian partnership. We are paving the way for qualified young people from India to gain professional and practical experience in Germany, study, start an apprenticeship, or work as skilled workers. Indeed, the close cooperation between my home state Baden-Württemberg and India on skilled workers is really a model. And it is not surprising at all, given that Baden-Württemberg has fostered a great partnership with Maharashtra for nearly 10 years now. Like Baden-Württemberg, Maharashtra has an excellent research, an excellent university landscape, as well as an industrial center with a large automotive industry. In Pune, for instance, there are already over 300 German companies. As you may know, Baden-Württemberg, or as we meanwhile call it, the land, is famous for its innovators and hidden champions. Or, as we say, the Tüftler. But how do I translate Tüftler into English? It's some kind of nerds that are obsessed with making the world better, creating new products. In this spirit of innovation that drives opportunities for partnership, supporting technology transfer between small and medium enterprises and promote startups and young founders could be another fruitful branch of our partnership. Bilateral cooperation could open up new economic opportunities, particularly for technology business in the automotive, software and electrical engineering sectors. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, the rules-based international order, as we all know, is currently under pressure. I highly welcome that India and my country, Germany, are deepening mutual security cooperation and strengthen the defense industrial partnership, for example, through joint exercises. A growing defense industrial partnership is not just a testament of trust. It reflects our shared conviction that investing in strategic sovereignty is vital. This is not only critical for global stability, but also for fostering an environment where economic opportunities and investments can flourish. India and Germany are not just partners in upholding the rules-based international order. We are partners in reshaping it to reflect the realities of a diverse and interconnected world. Together, we renew our call for the United Nations Security Council, that it is effective, efficient, and transparent, and that it is one that represents the realities of the 21st century. In this new global constellation, a close and strategically oriented German-Indian partnership is more urgent than ever. By working together, we can chart a strong democratic path towards an economic system that is both successfully and ecologically sustainable, an example to inspire the world. Thank you very much.
Sir, if you could just come back on stage, we want to present you with a token of our appreciation. Mr. Barandas and Ruben Kasper.
And what better in Stuttgart than to have a football jersey in your name? But for the India touch, we also have a stove.
Thank you so much, Minister Ozdemir, for that thought-provoking address, sir. Thank you. On to the next session. A code speak, as we're calling it. A clarion call has been sounded by nations across the world to use renewable energy in combating climate change. Promotion of sustainable energy sources is right on top of the agenda of every nation.
The transition to cleaner power generation is imperative for fueling sustainable growth. Should green energy be looked at only through the prism of cost benefit of companies, or is there a larger global cost and benefit of future generations the key? Does green energy make business sense, or is it just a tick in the box for nations and corporations? How long before the black coal actually turns green?
The world stands at an energy crossroads. Over 70% of global emissions stem from traditional energy sources. The call for renewable energy is urgent, undeniable. BC Tripathi is answering that call for change, a pioneer in green energy, fueling sustainable growth. Join him as he leads the energy transition to a greener future. The Coach Speak.
And the reason we ask all of those questions is because our next address is going to answer those questions and much more. To deliver that address, we have with us on stage Mr. BC Tripathi, Vice Chairman at AM Green. Thanks very much. The stage is all yours.
Thank you. Honorable Minister for Food, Agriculture, Education and Research, Excellencies, distinguished guests from India and Germany, ladies and gentlemen. A very pleasant good morning to all of you and to our dear friends, Guten Morgen here in Germany. It's indeed an immense pleasure and honor for me to be present here in this News9 Global Summit. As we all know, energy is the lifeline for the modern economy and to sustain the growth. But looking into the impact of the climate change, the time is high that we start talking about a sustainable future of energy. Today, as we come together to discuss the future of energy, we must be cognizant to the fact that transition from fossil fuel to the renewable source of energy promises a healthier, more sustainable world. The world where cleaner energy fosters better public health, environmental and overall well-being, and this transition holds far more than just economic potential. This shift is a movement towards securing a livable future for generations to come, driven by clean air, job creation, energy access, and resilient community and society. I stand before you today with the excitement and responsibility, not only on my behalf, on behalf of Greenco and AM Green Group. The co-founder of this company, Mr. Anil and Mahesh, who set up this journey to decarbonize the economy almost 15 years back, with the vision to help energy independence and to fast-track the growth of clean energy. What started with just a 20 megawatt couple of biofuel plants has today transformed into a platform which is operating almost 10,000 megawatt of renewable power running across wind, solar, hydro in 20 states across India. This transformation has been possible due to decisive leadership of Government of India under the visionary guidance of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi. The unwavering support for the renewable and clean energy has created enabling business environment in India. The global call
for the energy transition has never been so clearer. Over 70% of the global emission stems from the use of energy. Making the shift to the cleaner power not just is a necessity, but a moral imperative for all of us. As nation commit to the renewable energy to combat climate change, India has a huge opportunity to lead the charge, not only by scaling the renewable energy production capacity, but also creating a sustainable infrastructure for integration of that energy into the mainstream. The initiative like One Nation, One Grid can unlock the whole potential of renewable energy in India, and at Greenco, we are focused on finding sustainable, cost-effective solution at scale to integrate these resources into the national grid. Back in 2018, we took a bet on a long-duration energy storage, as we firmly believe it will be critical for integration of renewable energy and also for the safety and integrity of the energy system in future. Today, we are building almost 100 gigawatt hour of closed-loop hydro pump storage with the investment of $10 billion by 2030. This is with a proven technology and with the viable solution for long-term energy storage solution at scale. This energy storage will democratize the energy storage use on a real-time basis and day-ahead storage solutions for both renewable energy producer as well as the consumer. It will have a capacity to absorb 75 gigawatt of renewable energy into the system, and which will be made available on demand. With this, we are in a position to offer electricity at a price of less than 4 cents a kilowatt hour on round-the-clock basis, which is today cheaper than a base-load thermal coal power plant at a pithead level. The first project of this kind is under commissioning right now and should be available for commercial operation by the end of the current financial year. Going forward, from now, 2030, we'll be reaching a capacity of 100 gigawatt hours. Now, with the energy system decarbonization solution firmly on the execution pathway, we focus on building a larger vision for decarbonizing industrial emission and are proud to be at the forefront of the green hydrogen revolution as a part of India's green hydrogen mission. Ladies and gentlemen, you will appreciate the first industrial revolution started with coal, followed by oil and gas, and recently with the shale revolution, which we saw in US. We have been investing into these technologies, these resources to fuel our economy, and we have reached to a scale where it is today affordable. But looking into its impact, it is high time that we should talk about now green industrial revolution rather than industrial revolution. In this context, most recently we have launched a new platform called AM Green. It's a new venture dedicated to producing carbon-free molecules like hydrogen, green ammonia, sustainable aviation fuel, green methanol, and greener chemical for deeper decarbonization of industry. Energy transition, we all agree, cannot be seen in isolation. In this novel space, the role of collaboration between the policymaker, regulators, governments, technology players, companies, developers cannot be overstated. At Greenco and AM Green, we are fortunate to collaborate with the global capital partners like GIC Singapore, RDI from Abu Dhabi, and Oryx from Japan, and the industry partners like Petronas from Malaysia. On technology space, we have partnered with John Cockrell from Belgium for electrolyzer, Technip and Relay from France for EPC services, Halder Tapso and Casale for ammonia technology, and many others. We are also working with academia and esteemed institutions like Stanford University, University of Southern California, Indian Institute of Technology at Hyderabad, where we are working together to develop new technology and to innovate the new smart solutions. In this aspect, we have established a School of Sustainability in Indian Institute of Technology in Hyderabad. Moreover, AM Green has forged the key European partnership as well to accelerate the clean energy initiative. On one side, we have partnered with John Cockerell to set up a 2 gigawatt electrolyzer manufacturing facility in India. We have recently placed one of the largest electrolyzer order of 640 megawatt for our upcoming project in the state of Andhra Pradesh for production of green ammonia. Germany and India have a long-standing collaboration in the energy through the Indo-German Energy Forum, and how now this unique opportunity to lead this global climate action through collaboration under Indo-German Green Hydrogen Task Force. The Indo-German collaboration has the potential to meet almost 25% of the global energy need by 2050. As a testimony to our strong commitment to the German and European partners, the collaboration, the AM Green is also entering into the strategic partnership for offtake of green ammonia with the companies like Uniper, RWE and BASF from Germany, and Yara. We are also exploring the low-carbon solution with BASF for a value-added chemical decarbonization. And to further strengthen our technological portfolio, we have recently acquired Chempolis from Finland, which is a 2G ethanol biotechnology company, which will enable us to produce sustainable aviation fuel. Under our strategic partnership portfolio with Petronas, Malaysia, we are developing one of the largest green hydrogen platform, which is going to produce 5 million tons of green ammonia at multiple locations in India, with the investment of $7.5 billion by 2030. This will directly contribute to the net zero target of India, while simultaneously supporting the OECD market to decarbonize their industry. This output will be equivalent to almost 1 million tons of green hydrogen production, which is almost 20% of the national target of green hydrogen mission in India, which is also equivalent to almost 10% of the European import target for the hydrogen. The equity closure for all these 5 million tons of green ammonia platform has been achieved with the investment of almost $2 billion. And the first project FID has also been achieved, and the project is under execution. We expect to produce the industrial scale green ammonia by the end of 2026 in the early beginning of calendar year 2027. As nations worldwide strive to decarbonize their energy sector, the energy transition is not just about business sense or ticking the boxes between the government and the corporates. It's about securing a better future for generations to come, where we have a sustainable net zero economy. It's a movement towards a healthier, more inclusive and sustainable world, where energy drives not only economic growth, but also environmental justice, public health, and social equity. This transition is driven by the fundamental truth: the green energy does make a business sense. While there are initial challenges, but in long term, the lower cost, reduced carbon emission, and creation of sustainable growth opportunity are the undeniable benefit. Our work at AM Green is designed to be part of this larger global effort that fuels the green growth, not just in India, but across the world. Climate change represents the existential threat, and it requires far greater investments and collaboration. As we look beyond immediate profit and loss statement, we must recognize that sustainable future cannot be built solely on the financial metrics. A true value lies in the collective responsibility we share for the well-being of our planet and future generation. I urge you, as the global leader, to accelerate the energy transition and commit to the required leadership for a sustainable and a green future. Together we can unlock the full potential of green energy, not only for the business, but for the health and the prosperity of all. Ladies and gentlemen, before I conclude, I would like to thank TV9 and their German partner here for hosting this event and bringing us all together at this platform for such a large clarion call. This vision will not only be realized through partnership and collaboration, where the combined strength of nations, businesses, communities can drive the transformative changes needed to secure a greener, more equitable world for all. Together we can build a sustainable and decarbonized world. Let's join our mind and hands together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tripathi. Can I please request you?
Varun Das and Rowan Casper will just like to present us with a little token of our appreciation, sir. And Mr. Ozdemir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tripathi. Tackling climate change and reducing import dependencies on depleting fossil fuels are the two ends of the energy transition spectrum. Finding and deploying green alternatives is not a choice anymore, but a compulsion for all major economies today.
Europe's largest economy, Germany, and the world's fastest growing economy, India, need to collaborate in finding meaningful solutions to enable frictionless energy transition.
And that will be the focus of the first playoff of the day, Develop versus Developing. The green dilemma: how green is green really? Is it lip service or affirmative action? What's the role that the developed world can play to assist emerging economies in their journeys to growth with minimum carbon emissions?
The playoff begins.
And let's get ready for the first playoff of the day. We have a stellar panel of speakers for this session. Let me invite upon stage Rahul Munjal, CMD Hero Future Energies, Vibha Dhawan, DG Terry, Professor Dr. Andreas Bett, Director Fraunhofer IFC, Dr. Julian Horscherf, ESG and Sustainability Manager, HEP Solar, and we have Peter Hartmann, Management Board Member, Pre-Zero. And for this playoff, the match referee is my colleague Padmaja Joshi.
Hi, good morning. So we have a slightly different format at the summit here, since we are in a
football city, we are going to be doing this as a sort of match. I'm going to be the referee. You're all subject matter experts. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start by telling our audience here a little story. So at the beginning of this year, and especially people from India will identify, I'm Padmaja, by the way. Hi, Padmaja. And I'm going to be moderating this session. In January this year, we had the consecration of the Ram Mandir, which is, of course, very sacred to people in India. And the first announcement that the Prime Minister made soon after the consecration of the Ram Mandir happened is that our country is going to install solar panels on 1 crore rooftops across the country. The reason why I tell this story is because it speaks of the importance that green energy is given in the country. So you have a civilizational moment that has been consecrated in Ayodhya, and then you speak about the future of the country. Keeping that in mind, we also have this struggle happening between the developing and the developed world. So to kick off proceedings, I want to first start by asking Ms. Vibha Dhawan. You know, we are coming off on the back of COP29. Now, I'm going to ask questions purely from a layperson's point of view. The impression is that the developing world often has to shoulder the burden of what the developed countries are already doing. All of these meetings, these summits that we have globally, has that managed to address the imbalance?
Well, as we all know, COP meetings are held every year, and there are serious negotiations when the government's representatives are there and they discuss about what is climate change, how are we moving, and what needs to be done. Now, over a period of time, it has become very clear that we are making promises in terms of, last year it was loss and damage fund and implementation of that, but then the money which is committed never comes on the table. So it's very clear, but the message or why the COP still remains very important is that the developed part of the world has reached certain stage of development in terms of greening their procedures as well. Like, for example, when we talk of cross-boundary carbon tax and other things, it is that the developed part has technology. They can adopt that. But that doesn't mean that the developing part of the world starts paying perhaps as taxation for their development. So what we are looking at, or the importance of COP, is that the governments are sitting over there. First of all, they need to appreciate what is going to become very important in years to come. What is it they are thinking? Because the changes are not made overnight. They talk about that this will be implemented from 26, 27, or in next 5 years. So therefore, the preparedness or governments understand what they should be doing. And the second important part is that as they have combined voice of developing countries, that then they say what they cannot implement and what they can implement. It's very clear that the kind of financing we require is not coming. And maybe it would be wrong on the part of developing nations even to accept that to some extent. But what is more important is let at least there be flow of technology. It's very clear, like if I talk at the international level, I don't think so. There are critics which was 10 years back, that we all used to say, is climate change a real threat? But today we know, yes, it is a threat. And it's much the uglier than what IPCC reports predicted. And therefore, we have to act in that direction. Now, the developed part of the world also has to realize that there is only one planet to live in. So let's not worry about IPRs. Let's not worry about, I developed the technology, so what I'm getting in return. They should be more towards, this is only one planet, let me share, because if developing part of the world is not clean, I cannot be clean either. It's something like COVID, it's going to spread. So therefore, they have to be careful.
When you say the money is not coming, who are the defaulters there?
It's everyone. You look at the commitment which was made perhaps in every COP. It's not even 10%. Yes, we are spending money on the name of climate change, but maybe that's only to have meetings. It is not really saying that I'm going to give you soft loan. We are not asking for subsidy, but even the interest rates for the developing part of the world from international financing companies, it's much higher than what they give to the developed part of the world. So how do you expect where the capex is going to come from? So that the financing in that part also becomes important.
Professor Bett, where do you think the gap between intention and deliverables still hasn't been plugged just as yet?
I mean, I'm coming from research, so we are looking always forward. And we heard, God, we need money at the end. And our research is devoted to reduce the costs. I mean, look back 10, 20 years ago, solar energy was much too costly. So due to research and innovation, we are now in a situation that we have a source of renewable energy, and we have, in addition, wind and others. But it's important to look that we bring down the costs, that we can do a financing. And I agree with that. We need, in a certain way, a financial structure to really make it happen. But we must also look into the future, and that is why I really liked what you mentioned. We should look in the future and not look back what was our fault in the past, because developing countries are in some better shape actually to start with new technology, whereas the developed countries sometimes are very heavily struggling with old stuff and are not ready to proceed fast enough. So in my perspective, we try to work in a cooperative way to bring it in the whole world. And I think everyone here in the room can actually also start and contribute in a small way to reduce our carbon emissions. But we need technologies, and we need to develop that, and we put that in a financial framing. That's important, that we can make really business out of that. And I think in the past we made a lot of mistakes, we know that. We use our air and environment as waste for CO2. We didn't pay for that, and now we have a mess. So now I think we have to restructure the financing. CO2, paying for CO2 emissions would be one relatively easy way to go. That makes it more expensive for developed countries, for example, and push them to go faster into renewable world. So that is my really advice to do that, but we have to do in parallel also developing new technologies and make it even more cheaper. One important sentence to mix it up, because changing all our energy system, all sectors, is really challenging. It's very complicated. We look in all the different sectors and we see that this intermittent dependencies that will change our thinking. And this is something which is very, very difficult, which we find from research, to bring that into the mind of the people. That the old world is gone, we have to look forward. And this is a challenging part we have to do, and look into that we have a holistic approach for our energy supply in the future.
Everyone has the realization, Mr. Munjal, that we need to look to the future. I was looking at our budget document. Speaking for India, we had a huge outlay. We had the Prime Minister Surya Yojana, like I mentioned. He said 1 crore solar panels we need to put. But then you have a new US president who's saying, I'm going to drill, drill, drill. How do you look into the future when you feel, here we are, putting our shoulder to the wheel, and then there is the world's largest democracy, which is saying, we're going to drill, drill, drill. So you're pushing us 3 steps back. How does that work?
So he's actually saying drill, baby, drill. So it's not drill.
I wasn't sure that would be apt for this audience.
Yeah. So this is not the first time he's been the president, right? He was the president earlier as well. And I'll come to that in a little bit. But you must understand, for me personally, I'm a climate optimist. I know there's a problem. I know the world is probably already at 1.4. But I know if we spend some money, the biggest form of carbon emissions is the grid, is energy. Of course, transportation is another hard to abate sector, is the third, right? But for the grid, today we have solutions in wind, solar, and battery storage, etc. So there is technology, it needs to be used. Now, last year the world commissioned or added 530 gigawatts of renewables. We're sitting in Germany today. German grid, if I'm not mistaken, is 250 gigawatts only. So we added more than the German grid to the world. So the world is spending money and a lot of momentum is already there. So while he was the president last time around, Texas became the largest, I think, solar as well as wind producer in the US. So how much of a negative impact will he have? I'm not sure. There will be a negative impact for sure, but will it be to the tune of our fears in our mind? I don't think so. I think we sometimes overemphasize the importance, while he's very, very important, don't get me wrong, in any way or form. But we underemphasize the importance of the rest of the world. While the rest of the world understand what needs to be done, they understand we need $1 trillion every year. That's what they're talking about in COP today. I don't know how successful it will be, but we'll know in the next couple of days, I guess next 24, 48 hours. But if we're talking about to the tune of $1 trillion a year, it's going to come from all parts of the world. So I am, like I said, a climate optimist. I think we should be wary. I hope sense will prevail and he'll do the right thing. But the rest of the world will continue to do what needs to be done.
So you think a lot of this could also be political rhetoric, and in reality, like you mentioned the example of Texas, the reality is a shade different from what is said in the election campaign?
Always. Always.
Good to know that it's not limited to India alone. All right, my next question. Again, some data about Germany. Germany's electricity supply and the share of renewables in electricity has steadily grown over the last few years. The data which I was reading was that it was from around 6% in 2000 and it has grown to 38% in 2018, which basically means that they had a target of 35% for 2020 and that has already been breached. So 57% of Germany's electricity is now covered by renewables. What I want to ask our next speaker, Peter Hartmann, what I want to ask you is, how was this made possible?
Well, it's made possible by legislatory change, actually, that really pushed us very hard in that direction. But to be honest, this gives, for us in the industry, also a lot of problems. The electric matrix of Germany is changing with a lot of problems for the industrial companies. But what we do need, I think, to make that change happen, because I'm also a climate optimist, but I think we have to do a change. So what we need is a stable, we need stability in the nets, and we need a clear government, we need clear regulations of where to go to. That's, I think, the most important thing. We all know we have to change. And also when you ask about Trump, I think it really doesn't matter what they do in the US, because we have to act. We have one planet and we have to act now. But it's and I can even understand that it's really difficult to get the right legislation, to get the economic suspects to move in that direction. So yeah, to answer your question, it's a big step forward, what we have achieved here, but still, to be honest, I think it's also a painful change that we are living right now in Germany, but there is no alternative in my point of view.
Why do you call it a painful change?
Because a lot of capex is necessary, and a lot of times still when we burn fuel, gas, whatever, it's still cheaper than having solar, a big good solar industry, than having wind. We have to remake all the nets, so it's a lot of capex involved. The cost of energy in Germany is, I don't know if it's the highest, but with the highest in the world, which is causing a lot of problems for our industry, for the chemical industry, for example. So we are making our cost of living, our cost of production a lot higher to battle against climate change. And this, of course, is very challenging to the German industry.
But don't you think there'll be a pushback? At some point, the industries are going to push back and say, sure, you're out to save the world, but our economy will collapse. Our industries are going to bear the brunt of your climate optimism.
I think that's a very big discussion in Germany, that we say, well, we're a pretty small country. What does it change if we change? But it's one planet. I mean, there is really no alternative, and we are all sitting here. I think no one has a different opinion. We have to act. We heard the speech about green energy. That's the way to go. But it's a difficult way.
It's a good example to have set, and I will come back to you, Mr. Munjal, on that. What is the acceptability in India? But before that, Dr. Julian Hochscherf, this whole thing between the developed world and the developing economies, is there now a consensus that you cannot have large countries or large economies bullying the rest of the world into matching up or into contributing greatly to the climate goals while not being as good or as great a contributor themselves?
I mean, my perspective on this topic is that in Germany we speak much too often about the 2% that we contribute in greenhouse gas emissions per year. What we should rather speak about is our historical responsibility for CO2 emissions, right? So our welfare is based on historical CO2 emissions. So this is why we have to not hide between these 2% that we add annually to global CO2 emissions, but we have to take responsibility for the historical emissions. This is what leads us to this debate of increasing the share of renewable energies, to think or rethink business models, to think about circularity in business models, to think about how to integrate biodiversity protection measures, because there are links between sustainability topics, and it's not just about CO2. It's about so much more if you speak about a sustainable transition and transition of business models. So you have to make the step from linearity in business models to circularity in business models. And also for the solar industry, for the renewable energy industry, this is true in order not to make the same mistakes again that you have been doing in the 1950s when you relied on, or when you build up your wealth on fossil fuels. So this is really from my perspective, the main responsibility that we have to take, and we are taking this responsibility in the global north, not in the speed that is needed on a global scale to solve issues on a global scale, but we have to take the decisive steps on the journey.
Would you care to simplify that further? What do you mean by a circular model?
I mean, of a circular model, I'm speaking that Germany, for instance, is not a country that is rich in raw materials. So we rely on still importing much of the resources that we need also for the green energy transition. What I particularly do in my daily work is really to think about how can we get that business model circular? How can we recycle solar modules? That's really a decisive issue or a decisive step in that business model that you have to take, because then you're really getting independent. Right now we are just running into the next dependency, and we just have to think about how can we fuel the resources that we need for our business model, not just in Germany, basically in every country that is using renewable energies as well. Also in India, you should really have a plan of how to regain the resources that are included in the components, because it's possible from a technical perspective, but you have to do it from a commercial, or you have to make it feasible from a commercial perspective.
And that brings me to the question I wanted to ask you. We are looking at a model, but isn't that the next step? First, we talk about the acceptability among businesses, among the common people. Do you think that renewable energy has got that kind of acceptability that would be needed for your business, for example, to be largely profitable?
Yeah, so let's talk about the developing world. And even in developing world, India has a very unique situation. So there is India, and let's call the lesser developing world. Let's break that up into two different parts. In India today, there is in both the developing worlds, there is a dire need for poverty alleviation. That's our first and foremost goal. First is everybody needs to be fed 3 meals a day, nutritious meals, and good health care, period. That cannot be second to any other goal. So while that's the goal, India today is energy starved. Mind you, India has got a target of 500 gigawatts, 50 gigawatts a year. That's one of the largest targets in the world, third largest renewable energy target in the world. So it's not that India is not going to do its renewable energy bit. It is, but it needs more energy. That's why it's going to continue to build fossil fuel plants for another 3 or 4 years. I think 2030 or 2035, I'm not sure when we've drawn the line. But because we need energy, because our first goal is poverty alleviation. First goal is food, hunger alleviation. That's one. Then there are countries in sub-Saharan Africa, etc., for whom cost of renewables is still far greater than the cost of fossil fuel because they have access to oil and gas or they have access to thermal. So for them, it's a completely different question there. What do you do there? What is fair? Something that was said earlier. You take into account how much emissions were put in by what country in history, not the 2% this year. And if the conversation goes to that, it's a very, very different and a very matured conversation rather than what's happening this year alone. So, I want to stop there, but I want to draw the distinction between developing India as a more developed country than the other developing countries. I hope that comes out. You understand what I'm saying.
I'd like to add one thing. I think we have to think in steps, right? We have to see where's the potential to lower the emissions, and there a big potential, I think, in every country that is less developed are landfills. I think that's something that's completely missing in the discussion. But where we have landfills with untreated waste, they emit a lot of methane, which is a lot more hazardous to the climate than CO2. And this is, I think, a real easy leverage that we have if we better the situation. And well, I'm saying that because I'm from a waste management company, but still, if we change the way we treat the waste, if we have better landfills, then we can also already and very easily do a lot to lower emissions without talking about fossil fuel, without talking about big capex. So I think that's a really easy and a close-by step that we could achieve.
Ms. Dhawan, do you find all of these different aspects being addressed in India right now?
Yeah, in fact, it's very interesting. Like, first of all, one thing which was said that each one of us is contributing to climate change and I should know what I'm doing. And the movement, Mission Life, which is led by Ministry of Environment and Forest under leadership of our Honorable Prime Minister, that actually talks about what is my own carbon footprint. So it's lifestyles for environment. So, and it is also what gets mired perhaps gets managed. The other is in India, all the listed companies, they have to give their ESG reporting. And that's another step towards that, how responsible I am towards environment. The fact that each one of us is realizing that climate change is real and we can't continue, humankind cannot survive with this kind of emissions. We all are going to be responsible looking at how responsible the company is.
Ma'am, may I interject and be a little blunt? You spoke of individuals being made to realize their own carbon footprint. I remember about a couple of months ago, the Indian Minister for Road Transport and Highways, he said that anyone who has diesel vehicles, they're going to be taxed into the ground. And there was such a huge outcry. Everyone said that you are ruining industry. You think that you can just bulldoze everyone. Is there really a realization? I mean, the mission is great, but individually, have people really...
Yeah, no, you are absolutely right. And we also have to realize that India is a very, very price-sensitive market. And that also holds true with Bureau of Energy Efficiency when they talk about rating, 5-star rating for best of the equipment. Now, if I have spent 40,000 rupees on buying an air conditioner and it's perhaps 3 grade or something, and they tell me that these are outdated and everyone has to shift to 5-star, I can't do it. And same holds true for diesel vehicles. When we brought the diesel vehicles, it wasn't that they have life of 10 years. So if you bring it in between, and again we are doing a mistake, we are not looking into how good the vehicle is. We are basically looking at the age of the vehicle and we are not doing the life cycle analysis. How much of carbon footprint is there to manufacture a new vehicle? So we are missing on that. And we also have to see, do we have the alternatives available? Today you say electric. We don't have the electric infrastructure fully. Tomorrow it will be hybrid and maybe 5 years down the line, we are only going to have hydrogen. Who knows the way hydrogen develops? So therefore, it is also like for countries like India, we have to make that transition little slow. The other thing which is very important for India is, like, if I look into your and my carbon footprint, perhaps we'll be as good or as bad as Europeans and Americans. It's only our average goes down because energy access to many in the rural was not there. In many cases, it's still not getting mired because they're using firewood. So our carbon footprint, and let's realize as the economic status improves, you first invest on energy. And therefore, it's going to go up dramatically. It's going to go up. What we need to do that, it's a challenge, but I see more as an opportunity. Let's look at India. We had no fossil fuel. And being an energy-starved country, our development was comparatively slow. Every drop of fossil fuel was to be imported. But today, if we look at the cost of production of renewable energy, it is much cheaper than Europe. And therefore, because we have so much of sunshine. And let's also realize, and that is where when the Honorable Minister spoke, he was discussing about partnerships. And that becomes extremely important also for the development of technology. The technologies which have been developed for large entrepreneurs, large companies are not suitable for India, which is a country of small and medium enterprises. It's 65% of your production comes from SMEs. And if they are not cleaned, you cannot be clean. And therefore, you need to co-develop the technologies. And that's where the partnership with Germany becomes extremely important. The new education policy in our country now that talks of dual degree programs that will give you an opportunity to have common PhD students and they develop the technologies to the stage which is required by SMEs. It may not be the best, it may not be suitable for very large companies, but it's suitable for them. So co-development of technology also becomes important.
Professor Bett, if one thing both countries could take away from each other?
I think that is one thing which we certainly can take together is that we have to lower our CO2 emission. And the ways to do that, I think, is a little bit different. But I want to take up what was just mentioned, to cooperate. That's the way to go. We have our strengths, and there are strengths in India. And if we combine that, we are successful in the business and make money. At the end, we have to be honest. It's always about money and cost. And we heard nicely before that they have already 24 hours, 4 cents per kilowatt hour. We are talking in Germany in the best case for 7 cents. That makes a big difference if you go in manufacturing. And for example, we have projects transferring our know-how. For example, we have developed a solar cell architecture called TopCon, which is now the major architecture used in China. We transfer that currently to India to build up production lines for solar, because we need huge materials. And that is also something we are looking into. Life cycle assessment was mentioned. And that is why we look in circular economy, how we can design modules in a way that we can recycle it after 30, 40 years lifetime. How we bring back the material. We need really billions of tons, because we have to exchange all our system. And in a certain point, we will be limited by copper, because we go to more electricity. We know that already, and we are looking for substitute that and make better technologies. One important point, we set up in a university a master's program, Sustainable System Engineering. We have a lot of students from India now with us, educating in our institute. They go back, some stay also in Germany actually, to continue. And that is something we can do together, both countries, because we need at the end knowledge and education to implement and to transfer, and transfer also the mindset of the people.
Thank you very much. It has been a wonderful session. I really wish we had way more time. I don't think that's a problem or discussion. We can, get into one discussion alone. But thank you very much for sharing your wisdom with us. A huge round of applause. Thank you.
Panelists to be here, and we want Mr. Reuven Kasper and Mr. B.C. Tripathi to come. and give them a token of our appreciation. Thank you. Padmaja? Mr. Tripathi, stoles as well, sir. There you go.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you. Pleasure.
All right, thank you for that wonderful discussion. Now, this is a critical conversation for all countries trying to mitigate the impact of climate change. Ladies and gentlemen, let's move on to playoff number 2. This is one session that we're all looking forward to. It's Artificial Intelligence Advantage India. AI is reshaping industries globally. Today, we explore its impact on India and Germany.
Artificial intelligence is no longer fiction.
Across industries, AI promises unprecedented efficiencies.
But it comes with whispers of fear.
Job losses.
Human irrelevance. In a global economy grappling with slow growth,
Routine, mundane tasks, the very backbone of outsourced IT services, now at risk. Can AI offer cost-effective solutions?
The Pac-Man effect, jobs, intellectual property, even energy consumption. What does it devour next?
India's IT landscape faces a pivotal moment. Adapt or be left behind.
India isn't stepping back, it's stepping up.
a synergy of semiconductors, data centers, and IT solutions forms the path forward.
This is the dawn of strategic AI self-reliance.
Can AI be harnessed without erasing human roles?
आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस और एस्पिरेशनल इंडिया की डबल ताकत भारत के पास है.
The playoff begins.
In this playoff, we will be raising crucial questions about job displacement, economic implications, and sustainability in the global context. Let me call on stage Stephen Bayer, partner and global industry sector lead, supplier MHP. Thank you so much, sir. Anand Ramamurthy, MD Micron India. So we'd like to call you on stage. Dr. Jan Nihus, Head AI for Language Tech, Institute of Anthropomatic. Harshul Asnani, President, Europe Tech Mahindra. Mr. Debashish Bishoy, CEO Bosch SDS. And the match referee for this one, my colleague R. Sridharan.
Thank you, Meha and Padmaja. I see that we have a lovely panel this morning. It's a 360-degree on AI because we have someone who sells technology, we have someone who researches AI, we have someone who makes chips, then we have someone who's actually using AI for consumers. So I think it's going to be an interesting discussion. So I'm going to start, Harshul, with you because while there's been a lot of hype over AI over the last 2 years, especially since OpenAI, ChatGPT broke onto the scene in 2021, there is now a sudden skepticism on whether AI is going to deliver all that's being talked about. In fact, we have a new book that's come out in the US by two Princeton profs saying AI is snake oil
which I think is a rather harsh term to use for AI. So tell us, how are companies or corporates looking at AI? How much of deployment do you actually see in companies as far as AI tools are concerned?
No, firstly, Shri and Barun, thanks for hosting us all here. It's been an incredible event the last 2 days. Well, when it comes to AI, in my view, it's no longer a question of if. It's a question of when. It's a question of how soon. It's a question of how big. AI, and more specifically Gen AI, is probably the most powerful thing that has happened after the internet. And they say that the impact of AI is likely to be as profound as the impact of internet. They say that software eats the world, but now we are saying AI is going to eat software. And the timing is perfect. The reason I say that is, after many decades, while AI has been around for more than 50 years, but after many, many decades, all the foundational technologies, what we call as emerging technologies today, are in place now. Whether it is your 5G, whether it's your edge, it's your cloud, whether it's your compute power, the chipsets, everything that is needed to make AI flourish are in place. So, as they say, you ain't seen nothing yet. I think we're just at the very beginning of that. And we at Tech Mahindra have a very unique vantage point, because being a systems integrator, we come in at the front end of everything AI, right? We are invited by customers to do blueprinting, to help them with their roadmap. Again, it really depends on the AI maturity of our customers. There are certain companies which are leapfrogging. They are change agents. They are taking big bets. While there are some companies which are followers, then there are others who are laggards. Unfortunately, there's a research I read in, I think it was a BCG report, which said 2/3 of Indian companies are still laggards. I think most important for companies to look at is, what is that use case that you want to build? Exactly. What is the business use case? What is the impact that you want to solve for? Once you have that, then you bring the process, the people, the technology behind it to make it happen and drive the maximum impact and the impact on your balance sheet and on your P&L. While I feel that many companies are also at the same time more looking at technology than a use case, and they come in from a different vantage point that doesn't deliver the necessary impact, right? Because having overload of technology without the right use case and the right business work doesn't work out. So it's a wide spectrum. There are certain companies which are way ahead. There are certain companies that are still struggling.
Right. So Harshul makes a very important point, Debashish, in terms of the ROI on AI. I think that's where most of the companies are really struggling, because it costs a whole lot to train these models and then develop solutions that are actually going to generate any kind of return for the company. So from your experience as a vendor, do you have any examples in mind that you can share with our delegates here? Someone who's used AI and put it to really good use with good ROI on that investment?
So Sri, thank you very much for the question. I think it's a logical progression from what you asked Harshul, and Harshul set the stage very nicely. In many ways, your question is actually self-explanatory, right? So if you look at the hype cycle of previous technologies that we have seen, which have become pivotal in industry and therefore business, you'll realize that there comes a point in time when people start asking questions about the efficiency of the technology, one, and the impact of that technology in our day-to-day life, right? So I think we are reaching that point in time. It is not a question of if anymore. It's more a question of when, how, and where. Most importantly, where. And that's where the use case angle becomes extremely relevant. From our standpoint in Bosch, we are at a point where we are deploying AI inside the company. More specifically, we have also realized that we have to innovate with our customers, right? So this is not something where you will have the luxury of time on your side, right? So you have to accelerate innovation at a very, very fast pace. Therefore, we are working with our customers to identify the right use cases and the domains where we think ROI will be very high, right? So on the Gen AI domain, right, we are all used to a form factor of where you type something or you input an image to any of the Gen AI platforms, and we are used to seeing a return, right? We get a return from the tool, and then that is what we have seen in the consumer domain.
It's a nice toy to have.
Absolutely.
Right now, yeah.
See, that is the only form factor that we are used to for the time being. But we believe, on our side, we believe that the revolution is actually waiting to happen in the B2B domain, right? So there are two axes that we believe are going to be extremely important. One is the geopolitical aspect of it. Countries will interact with each other. The federals will interact with each other, and corporates will interact with each other. These are the two domains where we believe that there is a lot of innovation that is waiting to happen, and therefore we are working with some of our customers, partners, ecosystem partners, so on and so forth, to evolve corporate use cases, and therefore we can deliver value to the end consumer. Right. So I'll stop here. We will kind of layer this on as we move forward.
Absolutely, we should, yeah. So before I go to Anand and Stefan, Jan, there's a question for you. I'm not sure if you already read this book by the Princeton professors that were referring to AI snake oil, but they actually give you a lot of examples where these AI models have actually built on faulty data. And we know that an AI engine is going to be only as good as the data we put into it, right? So from your perspective, you're a researcher, how do we fix these issues? I'm sure there's work happening in that. If you look at what's happening at DeepMind, Google DeepMind, the work they're doing in terms of weather prediction, even in terms of protein folds and everything, it's remarkable. So do you see this as the initial teething troubles of AI? Technologically, is it going to get better in terms of the data that's going in and the output that comes out eventually?
I think we already see that a bit. So, I mean, I think with ChatGPT, the big advantage was not developing a complete new technology or so. It was really like scaling things up. And then even for researchers, it was really surprising, like what we get just by scaling things up. We're reaching, I agree that, like some amount where there's not that much new data coming in. It's also like getting more challenging because data, which is essentially, but is more and more generated by Gen AI. So this gets a challenge that you're no longer sure on what you're really learning on. On the other hand, we're seeing that with this status now, we're also getting more efficient on like how to use the data. We're seeing smaller models having similar performance. And I think this is something where we definitely have to look into how to improve ML. If we compare it to a human, they have seen so much more data than any human ever will have the chance to. But in a lot of things, they're still not on par. So how to make these models learn more efficient from what is out there is definitely currently a very hard research topic, and where we have to see how we can improve that.
Yeah. So Anand, that brings me to you because the high cost involved is in terms of the GPUs, TPUs, the cloud storage, and of course the energy consumption. From your perspective, you're a hardware manufacturer. How do you see the costs coming down in the years ahead?
Morning, everyone, and wonderful to be here. And Barun, great setup, amazing. Doing this in the middle of Germany with such an eclectic crowd. It's just amazing stuff. Just one quick position statement, Sridharan, before I respond to your question, right? The human mind is geared to think very linearly. So I always feel we overestimate the impact of technology in the short term and tend to kind of underestimate it in the long term, right?
True.
So my position statement is we've been trying to mimic the human brain for a very long time. I've been in the computer industry for over 2 decades. We've been trying to wonder, the human brain consumes 20-watt power and does the kind of reasoning that compute systems can't, right? So independent of the Princeton study, great respect for people, there'll always be intellectual digression on these topics, but I believe that the train for mimicking the reasoning and the compute performance of brain, that train has already left. And the question now is to how to make the journey safe, secure, and worthwhile.
Right.
Back to your question on semiconductors, we selfishly believe we are the pizza base on which the whole semiconductor AI stack sits on. And we have, if you know, all of you are familiar with Moore's law, the industry has found ways to bring down cost consistently over many decades, right?
True.
Now, of course, because of device physics and other challenges, we've kind of hit a roadblock now, but a very interesting thing is happening. I'll get a little technical here and then forgive me if this is not too relevant. There is a fundamental shift happening in how enterprise server architectures are designed. The traditional architecture would be a CPU sitting next to it, is a DRAM from Micron or any of our peers. That is being replaced by a GPU or a TPU. And what we are seeing, just a plug for my mother company, instead of having a discrete DRAM, now we have stacks of DRAM. If you open up the NVIDIA Blackwell architecture, what you see is instead of one single DRAM, you have 8, 10, 16 layers of DRAM with some logic built under it. So the point I'm trying to make to you is the innovation is intense. The amount of innovation you're seeing in the compute architecture is intense, which is why the future for AI is so bright, because the building blocks are beautifully getting in shape. The cost is always high at the start because the industry is very sensitive to yield. In semiconductors, having a viable silicon is not enough. It has to yield in excess of 99% for this to be cost effective. I think thanks to the whole focus on bandwidth, the fundamental shifts in server architecture, and the fact that most companies in the ecosystem are innovating so well, I think the cost structures will get better over time. And cost is a function of scale, adoption, and also more competition.
Improvements in technology.
Yeah, and you know, today it's largely a few players kind of taking the lead.
Absolutely.
I'm very sure, I'm predicting that there'll be multiplayer kind of a scenario, and with more players, more economies of scale.
Right, right. So, Stefan, you are someone whose job is to look at how do you use AI, metaverse, Web3 technologies from a consumer point of view, like engagement. How much of AI actually are you able to use or do you plan to use going ahead in engagement with your customers?
Thanks for the question and good morning. Great to be here. It's a wonderful event and also I couldn't agree more to what is actually said. So I would like to zoom out a little, and this is exactly what you're referring to. We are facing a new general purpose technology. So it was said before that there's a world without electricity, then there was a world with electricity, then we had internet, and now we have AI. And I think this is the big picture which we have to keep in mind if we talk about AI, because I also agree to your statement. In the short term, it's overestimated in regards of the impact, but in the long term, nobody of us can actually predict where we lead to. And this is a really fast-paced development which we're facing right now. So basically on a weekly basis, we see new developments and we see new enhancements and we see also new technologies coming up. And I think this is something which we need to keep in mind when we also think about how to leverage the potential of AI within corporations. And therefore, I would say it's important just to use that big picture to leverage for your advantage. And what that means, it means like every corporation needs to see in terms of engagement, AI as critical infrastructure. There was like a time where there were no ERP systems like to manage your processes and to manage your workflows in the corporations. And now there's like a fundamental layer within your critical infrastructure in the company to leverage that process enhancement and to manage your processes. And that kind of layer is important for every corporation within the company also when it comes to AI. And that means that this gives you like a competitive advantage because then it's in your DNA, it's in your critical infrastructure and you can leverage the technology. And this is also what we at MHP suggest to our clients just to get moving. So you need to adopt the technology and you need to start moving. The train is not left.
That's good news. So Harshul, one of the ironies of AI is that it's actually eliminating low-end coding. Like Sundar Pichai in the Q3 call talked about how 20% of coding in Google is now all automated. I mean, there are no humans who are doing it. So in your experience, how is that going to impact not just the IT workforce, especially from an Indian perspective, but companies in general, like everyone? Jobs are at risk, without doubt.
Well, let me zoom out a bit and I'll come to your question, but we should all understand that over hundreds of years, when the steam engine came out, when the internal combustion engine came out, when internet happened, everybody was worried. In fact, when internet came, people were even worried that how can you send messages on an insecure platform like email? And at every stage, there were in some sense job losses, but collectively, worldwide, the number of jobs have gone up. So it's a question about reskilling. It's a question about upskilling. Yes, there will be job losses in several sectors, coding just being one of them, call centers, and many other works which have repetitive tasks potentially can get eliminated. But with that said, we do not expect mass layoffs. Companies like TechM, and I'm sure many of our other peers, are doing trainings and upskilling at a massive scale. We already trained about 40,000 people in our company on AI in the last 1 year. We expect to train another 40,000 people in the next 6 months.
Right.
So we are doing this at a very large scale. So we have to move our people from standard coding jobs to newer age technologies around AI, around ML, around cloud, around data architects, data engineering, so on and so forth, which we are doing. And Indian services companies have pivoted many times. Right? Indian services have been threatened, but have been pivoted many times. But
Jan, what are your views on this?
Yeah, I mean, I can only agree. I mean, I think, if you're not using the technology, it is a problem for you. But there are so much more new opportunities which we can do new things with the technology. We can more efficient. It can be also like more people can code because they can code together with AI. And they can be creative in new ways. We are seeing that already, like first with what people all started doing with all these Gen AI things. So I would more see it, maybe I'm seeing it too positive, I'm not sure because I'm in the field, but I'm seeing it more as positive.
Right.
And there's just a lot of opportunities out there which we should take.
Right.
And where there are things which we couldn't do without Gen AI, which we now can do with Gen AI.
Okay, right. So Anand, when we talk about AI, we tend to talk in terms of an amorphous kind of an entity, but the fact is every country probably needs its own AI. So we're talking about Advantage India, referring to the fact that we have an edge when it comes to software coding, IT services. That's a challenge also for Germany or any other country. How do you see India basically addressing the need to develop its own LLMs, LMMs? How do we do that?
Right, I think good question, Sridhar. Not a day goes by when we don't have this classic intellectual battle between should you create foundational LLMs from the core, or should we look at more of a tweak, calibrate, by application, by business kind of a model. So I'll give you my position. It's not Micron position, but my position. I think a country like India needs both. I would not get lost in the either-or discussion. I think there's this famous smile curve that we talk about. Raghuram Rajan talks about it in his recent book. At the heart of that smile curve is manufacturing is critical for India, but R&D and IP creation is where we get the highest value for the buck.
Right.
We talked about pricing and cost structures. OpenAI has a near monopoly over how they create these engines, right?
True.
I think it's time for India, because of our skill and scale both, to not completely ignore the foundational LLM. I know the data sets are limited. We are looking at language models which are tuned to our cultural nuances. I think that effort should continue. Mm-hmm. It should get a lot of support from industry, academia, and the government. In fact, there's one place where the government can truly, because our R&D investments as a percentage of GDP is still not the best in business, for reasons we largely understand. But if I were to ever advise the Indian government, not that they would listen, but I would suggest that enhancing the R&D input in the LLM space would be a perfect time to create true sustaining long-term leadership. While that is happening, Indian culturally and business-wise is very adept at trying to figure out a business model where from the IT companies to semiconductor companies, the whole value chain will find a way to go and monetize and tweak and calibrate models. So my net there would be, hey, listen, don't get lost in the either or. There is a famous saying in our Micron world, we say the genius of doing nothing. Our best products have come when smart people kept on tooling, retooling, and tinkering with building blocks.
Great.
And from there emerges great genius, right? I know it's a luxury for a country like India, which is still developing, but perfect time for me to go dabble a little more in that area.
So I'm down to my last 5 minutes. So, but Harshul, in 30 seconds, I know that Tech Mahindra is also developing its own LLM model called Project Indus.
Yes.
In 30 seconds, tell us what it's really trying to do.
Yeah, no, so we've built it grounds up. And it is for addressing 650 million people in India who speak Hindi. This LLM model built on about 4 billion parameters, as I said, grounds up, and addresses 37 different dialects of Hindi. It has got some rave reviews, and I think it's very important for country. And we also, by the way, done it for Indonesia in partnership with NVIDIA, and that's again getting rave reviews for Sahabat and the local languages. It's incredibly important for sovereignty of a country to have its own LLM. Yeah,
Right. Okay. So I'm going to switch gears now. Come to the most important issue which everyone's grappling with, which is of AI safety, ethical issues around AI, the guardrails that we need to build around it. So, Debashish, what to your mind are the big challenges, and how can we build sufficient guardrails around AI, especially as it moves towards artificial general intelligence, which I'm told will probably match or surpass human intelligence?
So, Sri, I think there was this initial paranoia about, what happens with AI when it becomes sentient and that sort of thing. Broadly, from my standpoint, the way I see it, there are two categories of issues here. One is obviously the geopolitical issue, right? And the second is the socio-economic impact of things. In the second category, which is the socio-economic category, we believe that the initial paranoia is kind of waning down, right? People have started realizing that definitely new piece of technology looking for a problem to solve. So therefore, there will be positive impact on economy. Upskilling will happen, as Harshul said, but it will make very, very fundamental impact to adding to, let us say, not even gross domestic, but gross, if were there such a number like, global economy, right? So it will add significantly to that level. So there is no doubt about that. The guardrails topic, the security and related topics, I believe there will be formation of blocks, right? So if there is such a thing, then probably diplomacy, AI diplomacy will also become relevant. And the so-called socio-economic blocks, global blocks will figure out the necessary, let us say, rules of engagement, right? So as to engage safely, right? Okay. And still I believe there is a domain which is continuously going to remain with human beings, which is about, let us say, taking executive decisions based on inferences.
Right. So human and AI. Stefan,
Absolutely.
what's your view on this? On the guardrails that you need to build as you build responsible AI products for your customers and your clients and your consumers?
I think in that regards, there's also a huge opportunity. So we are focusing sometimes too heavily on the risks of AI and not of the opportunities, because the technology gives us the possibility to focus on topics which really matter. So we are talking right now about repetitive tasks, and fortunately, and so far also with AGI, AI has no soul. So there's no soul to it, and this is also like a huge opportunity when it comes to creativity and when it comes to focusing on things that really matter. I can give you just an example from Porsche. So we created a use case where developers are going to develop user stories and tickets in a dialogue with AI, and we could increase the efficiency in that regards by more than 50%, but also in that regards we could increase the development quality, because there are no misunderstandings. AI loves to write tickets, developers not.
True. Okay. So 30 seconds only, Jan. I'm going to let you wrap this up because you're an engineer, you're a researcher. Should we really fear AI?
No, of course not. I'm working on it. So I don't say you should fear it. You should see how it works. We should all, I guess, learn more about how it works so that we can estimate where it's helpful, where it's maybe not helpful, that we understand where it maybe reacts other than a human, and that we understand that. Right. So I think the understanding is important, and then it's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for a lovely session. Over to Meha and Padmaja.
And thank you for all for this discussion to all of our panelists. This really spoke about the transformative impact of AI. Ladies and gentlemen, we have seen 2 playoffs already. But before we go on to the coach's perspective, can we please request on stage Mr. Ruben Kasper and Mr. Hemant Sharma, whole-time director editorial at TV9 Network, to please felicitate all of our speakers. Mr. Kasper, Mr. Sharma, please.
आगे
In this
we'll come right now. There is one more session. I'll come now. Chairs also have to be moved.
All right, Meha, so we are moving on now to the coach's perspective.
That's right. We've already seen 2 playoffs. Time for our coach's perspective. Please join me in inviting Gunther H. Oettinger, former European Commissioner for Energy, Digital Economy and Human Resources. He will speak on digital economy, vision for the next decade. But before that, take a look at this AV.
Redefining industries, transforming lives. Data-driven solutions for a digital world. Unlocking potential, driving innovation. A visionary shaping Europe's digital future.
Guiding the next decade of digital transformation.
Join him as he unveils the future of the digital economy. The Coach Speak.
Mr. Oettinger, the floor is yours, sir.
Excellencies, Ministers, dear guests, colleagues, friends from India, dear Ruben Kasper, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, welcome to our friends from India, welcome to Europe and welcome to Baden-Württemberg. As a former Prime Minister of Baden-Württemberg, I'm happy to see such a conference, a high-level platform organized, co-organized by my sports club, VfB Stuttgart, by Ruben Kasper, and an event bridging India and Germany and Europe. And we need such bridges. Let me say my vision, the global geopolitical vision is, we are living in a kind of a pentagram. Here's the US, ongoing, maybe number 1. Here, China, very important, with increasing industrial and military power. Here, I regret Russia. Here, India, the biggest country, 1.4 billion citizens, with a huge potential. You are a part of it. And maybe Europe. If Europe is working together, if Europe is united, if our 27 member states plus UK, plus Western Balkan, plus Switzerland is a united team, a pentagram. And no doubt we are living in a digital revolution. And the US, California, are in lead. And China is following. Take Microsoft, Google, Apple, all the others, Facebook, Intel, and so on. Take Huawei, Tencent, etc. And I see the potential of India. Mainly the human resources you have. Young, perfect, educated, qualified people. IT specialists from your country. What is our European economic strength? It's a tradition. It's about manufacturing. It's about automotive, mobility. Here we are in the Mercedes Street. Just one corner from here, it's the headquarters of Mercedes Car Group. It's Porsche, it's Bosch, it's Continental, it's ZF, and so on. And we are living in a digital revolution, means the car of tomorrow, no, mobility of tomorrow is digital. So data is key, not the engine. Data is key. Okay, it's a car, it's steel, it's aluminium. There are traditional components, but the three new elements are autonomous driving, on the one hand, are electric vehicles, e-mobility, and is entertainment inside the car. And here we are quite weak. So I think a partnership India, Europe, Germany can be a win-win effect. With your human resources, with your ambition, with your potential, and our tradition. So I think we should work together in the deepest manner. We have a lot of contacts, no doubt. And if you see this pentagram, the US, democracy. Europe, democracy. India, democracy. Russia, dictatorship. China, difficult, but no democracy. So I think our values, democracy, our human picture, or our social market economy, our openness, our readiness for fair competition, we have a common understanding of the global economy of tomorrow, a common culture. And this we should use. And we have a lot of added value there for. Digital revolution and big data. Not all policies have to be Europeanized. But in a digital age, we need a common European policy, a common single market. So we are in Brussels on the way to Europeanize digital policies. Take the General Data Protection Regulation. Take the AI Act. Take the Big Data Act. Take the infrastructure from 5G to 6G next decade. Please understand, digital policies are not Stuttgart, are not Berlin. Digital policies have to be Brussels regulation. What is our problem? We are over-regulated. As often, Europe and Germany, we are perfect to regulate or to over-regulate. Reporting obligations. The AI Act in general is a good idea. But the US, they are open, no rules, no regulation. Europe over-regulated. So startups have to leave Europe, have to go to Canada or to the US because they have more room de maneuver. Less obligations, so less costs. And here, Europe should be much more pragmatic. Olaf Scholz, the Chancellor, was in your country. And I agree, we should work for to come to a next trade agreement, a general trade agreement, India, Europe. But I can understand, accept Modi, your president, don't like European obligations. Don't like our culture to say, you have to act so and so and so. No, we have to be much more liberal, much more flexible. It's the business, and it's not more than the business. Environmental dimensions or climate change dimensions are important, but not inside a trade agreement. A trade agreement has to do with exports, imports, investments, clarity, fair competition, end of the story. And so I think here we have to come together. We have to accept, or no, we have to understand what is your priority list. What is your expectation to Europe? What is your openness? Having an Indian, European and German connection and agreement. I'm sure within the next decade, India can be the biggest GDP partner globally. If you see, where do you come from? Where are you now? With 1.4 billion citizens, with your education, with your universities. I'm sure before end of 2040, India will be number one. And China and US in Europe are following. So you have a huge potential. And India maybe is the leader of the global south. You are near to many countries in Africa, in Asia, even in Latin America. So my expectation is you have to be the leader of the global south of tomorrow, but in a democratic manner, in a fair manner, in an open manner. India is young. Germany is old. Our demography is difficult. So your potential of tomorrow is your young generation. And what we can offer to you is, please ask your kids, your girls, your boys to come to Germany even for some time, to a German university or to SAP, to a German IT company. We need your excellent young generation as a global generation. We are open, we are willing to invite everybody. And so I think this conference is perfect as a platform for to demonstrate our openness, our interest for a German-Indian partnership and for a German-Indian win-win relationship. All in all, tomorrow you will see a football match, I think. Our VfB Stuttgart against Bochum, it's a must, it's an obligation to win. Tomorrow it's an obligation to win. Hopefully. But our main competitor in Germany is the Bavarian team, is Bayern München. I accept them, I don't like them. So on a mid-term development, we need a team here which can be number one in Germany and which can be interesting for you as well. Let me say, before I come to an end, please come again. Baden-Württemberg is quite interesting. The Black Forest, the Lake of Constance, Mercedes, Heidelberg, Baden-Baden, and so on. Please, it should not be your first and last visit to Stuttgart in Baden-Württemberg. It should be your visit today, and let's continue. And maybe our next conference could be in India. And if you are willing to invite me, I'm there. All the best, good luck.
So we request you to come up on stage again. We'd just like to give you a token of our appreciation. Ruben Kasper and Ramu Rao Chupalli, Vice Chairman, my home group. You can go.
Well, that's an amazing memory to be taking away. Thanks very much, Mr. Oettinger, for all of your valuable insights on the future of digital economy and the opportunities that lie ahead in the next decade. Let's take a very short break at this point. Tea and coffee, but I'd request everyone to be back in the hall by 11:20 latest. Look forward to seeing you back.
The next Indian icons, beating everyone on the globe. Prepare for breathtaking performance. B6E and XEV9E. Mahindra's electric origin SUVs. Catch them at Unlimit India.
यही मौका है बिजनेस को बढ़ाने का, पर पैसा।
अपनी सुपर पावर यूज करने का टाइम आ गया है।
टेंशन मत लीजिए, IIFL फाइनेंस से झटपट गोल्ड लोन लीजिए और बिजनेस आगे बढ़ाइए।
आपके जैसे सुपर हीरोज ऐसी छोटी मोटी प्रॉब्लम से थोड़ी ना रुकते हैं, इसीलिए